Welcome back to CIA Declassified. If our previous episode, Project Pandora, was about weaponizing energy, today's is about weaponizing information itself. This episode is about Project Gateway, a project that began with the realization that the digital age was not just producing more data, but exponentially too much data for human analysts to process. The goal of Gateway was to build a system that could identify the silent signals of intent hidden within the world's daily digital noise. Now, a crucial clarification. For listeners who remember our deep dive into consciousness exploration, please note that this Project Gateway is entirely distinct. It is not to be confused with the Gateway process files that we discussed in our second episode, which focused on altering perception and reaching holographic reality states. This Project Gateway is grounded in the hard mechanics of data, algorithms, and global surveillance infrastructure. It is the weaponization of big data. The foundational document is CIA-D-19961-00109. It defines the core mission, moving intelligence from a reactive assessment model, what happened, to a predictive synthesis model, what will happen. Project Gateway's most ambitious deliverable was the Total Awareness Network. The goal was to eliminate the stovepipe problem in intelligence, where data from different sources, signals, imagery, human assets, financial records, remained siloed and unconnected. TAN, Total Awareness Network, sought to fuse everything into a unified operational picture. Data ingestion. The network was designed to ingest streams from dozens of sources. GeoInt, global satellite imagery, monitoring changes in infrastructure and activity. FinInt, comprehensive tracking of financial transactions, identifying unusual fund transfers or purchasing patterns. OzInt, open source intelligence, scraping social media forums and publicly available data. HumInt, synthesis, integrating raw reports from human assets and cross-referencing them with digital metadata. The TAN architecture was a massive multi-tiered database designed to run complex cross-referencing queries that no human team could execute in a timely manner. This allowed the agency to generate real-time risk score for individuals, groups, and geographic regions. The operational heart of Gateway was its predictive threat modeling software. This software used machine learning, a cutting-edge concept at the time, to find correlations too subtle for human analysts. Anomaly detection. PTM algorithms were trained on historical data sets of successful and failed operations. They looked for micro-anomalies, a sudden change in travel patterns, a spike in burner phone usage, or a sequence of low-value financial transfers. The clustering of these micro-anomalies would trigger a high-priority pre-crime alert. The problem of false positives. The document heavily redacts data concerning the efficacy of PTM, but internal memos hint at the, quote, crisis of the false positive, end quote. The system was so sensitive, generating millions of alerts daily, that analysts began treating the alerts themselves as noise, eventually undermining confidence in the entire network. Quote from CIA-D 19961-00109, Internal Review Memo, page 43. We have created a microscope powerful enough to see every mote of dust, but in doing so we have lost the ability to distinguish the dust from the target. The signal-to-noise ratio is unsustainable, and we risk paralysis by information. End quote. Appendix C of the Gateway file is almost entirely focused on the ethical debate surrounding the PTM's core function, referred to internally as the, quote, black box dilemma, end quote. The machine learning algorithms became so complex and self-evolving that analysts could no longer explain why the system flagged a specific individual or event. It could only state that the likelihood of a threat was X%. This created a profound accountability crisis. How do you justify surveillance, intervention, or even neutralization based on a computer prediction that no human can fully reverse engineer? Algorithmic bias as well. The heavily redacted sections likely deal with the discovery that algorithms, trained on potentially biased historical data, began to exhibit bias themselves, disproportionately flagging certain demographic groups or regions as higher risk, regardless of real-time activity. The agency found that once a systemic bias was encoded in the algorithm, it became nearly impossible to fully excise. The ethical collapse of Gateway wasn't about malice, it was about surrendering human judgment to the cold logic of an opaque, self-directing machine. Project Gateway was not shut down, it simply became a permanent foundational layer of the modern intelligence infrastructure. The concept of the Total Awareness Network was modularized and integrated across multiple agencies, fundamentally changing how intelligence is gathered and synthesized in the 21st century. Final determination, fundamental shift. Gateway successfully shifted the agency's core strategy from relying solely on human assets to prioritizing algorithmic analysis of bulk data. 2. The black box legacy. The project left behind the persistent black box dilemma where intelligence decisions are made based on probabilistic models that cannot be fully audited or explained. The story of Gateway reminds us that in the digital age, our greatest vulnerability might be the information we produce in the systems designed to protect us by watching it all. Thank you for tuning in to this exploration of Project Gateway. We hope this episode provided clarity on the profound shift towards predictive analysis in the post-2000s intelligence environment. Please like this episode and share it with someone who's concerned about data privacy and the reach of algorithmic governance. Your support helps us continue to examine these deep declassified cuts. Next, we're diving into an epic story of Cold War espionage that required not just spies, but a massive custom-built deep-sea salvage ship disguised as a civilian mining vessel. This is the story of secret science, sunken nuclear secrets, and the cover-up that lasted decades. Next, we analyze documents linked to Project Azorian, aka Project Jennifer, deep-sea submarine recovery, utilizing CIA document RDP-88 01070R000100220003-4. This 1970s operation was focused on secretly locating and recovering a sunken Soviet nuclear submarine from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean to gain access to Soviet weapons, codebooks, and intelligence. Tune in next for CIA Declassified, Project Azorian, Deep Sea Submarine Recovery. Until then, remember, maintain your vigilance, question the shadows, and keep your critical thinking sharp. I'll see you in the archives.